There's a lot going on, but I want to start tonight with the dumpster fire, that's the only way to call it, that is still raging in North Carolina. Because it's actually about more than one crazy guy. And believe me, he's definitely crazy if you've read any of the things he said. And it's also about more than one important swing state. And believe me, North Carolina is very important. But this really is a story about the corner the Republican Party has backed itself into. As I'm sure you've all heard by now, or probably wish you could unhear or unsee if you've been paying attention, Mark Robinson, the Republican nominee for governor in North Carolina, posted a whole lot of stuff on a porn site. He called himself a black Nazi, expressed support for reinstating slavery, and called MLK an effing commie. His words, not mine. That was all according to a very thorough report from CNN that came out just last week. Now, surprise, surprise, ever since then, Robinson has repeatedly denied making those comments. And what we heard from him today was just about as Trumpy as you can get.
We're in talks right now, everything up to legal counsel to take CNN to task for what they have done to us. We are going after them, okay? We are going to go after them for what they've done.
Threatening to sue a media organization for reporting on something you actually did. I wonder who he learned that trick from. So that's Mark Robinson's response. Now, when it comes to the rest of the Republican Party, not all of them, but many Republican leaders, we're seeing some flashes of what you would expect to see in the wake of a scandal like this. I mean, 4 of Robinson's top staff members resigned over the weekend. The Republican Governors Association is cutting off their spending, writing in a statement today, quote, "Our current media buy in North Carolina expires tomorrow, and no further placements have been made." That's all they said. So, yeah. Robinson is losing staff, and he's not getting any more money from the Republican Governors Association. None of that is a good sign for any campaign, to state the obvious. They're all but forfeiting this race for governor in North Carolina, which he was already losing before this. But here's the thing. Even as staff abandons him and the money dries up, no one is speaking up forcefully as to why those things are happening, even though it's quite obvious as to why those things are happening. There was no condemnation of anti-Semitism in those statements from staffers or the RGA, no denouncement of the self-proclaimed black Nazi comments, and there has been no denouncement of any of that from far too many leaders of the Republican Party. I mean, Donald Trump, who has absolutely zero self-control whatsoever, I think we can all agree on that, just spent the last few weeks waxing poetic about pets, who defends the indefensible every chance he gets. That guy did not mention Robinson once this weekend during a rally in North Carolina, of all places. His running mate, J.D. Vance, did manage to say something about all of this while really saying nothing at all.
Do you believe him that those were not his posts?
I don't not believe him. I don't believe him. I just think that you have to let these things sometimes play out in the court of public opinion.
I don't not believe him. I'm wondering if somebody wrote that down as a talking point for him. I don't know the backstory, but not to worry. J.D. Vance took another crack at it today in North Carolina.
What he said or didn't say is ultimately between him and the people of North Carolina. The people of North Carolina are going to make that decision. Now, look, I've seen some of the statements. I haven't seen them all. Some of them are pretty gross, to put it mildly. Mark Robinson says that those statements are false, that he didn't actually speak them. So I think it's up to Mark Robinson to make his case to the people of North Carolina that those weren't his statements, and I'm going to let him make that case. A sex scandal in North Carolina is between the lieutenant governor and the people of North Carolina.
A sex scandal? I mean, it wasn't a porn site, but there was no mention of the black Nazi stuff or the praising Mein Kampf stuff, none at all. And then the profile continued today with House Speaker Mike Johnson. When asked if he supports Robinson, a man who never misses a moment to talk about his faith and how important it is to him, a man who has spoken repeatedly out against anti-Semitism, said this, quote, "I'm not involved in the North Carolina governor's race. I got enough on my hands." Okay. And Senator Tom Cotton echoed that non-answer answer just yesterday.
Do you think that Trump should still support Mark Robinson in North Carolina?
I'll leave that to President Trump, and most importantly, I'll leave it to the people of North Carolina.
I mean, really? The guy applauds Mein Kampf on a porn site, and that's the best you can do? You knew you were going to be asked about it. Senator Lindsey Graham managed to somehow, though, outdo Tom Cotton.
I think what's going to happen here is that he deserves a chance to defend himself, Mark Robinson. The charges are beyond unnerving. If they're true, he's unfit to serve for office. If they're not true, he has the best lawsuit in the history of the country for libel.
I could go on, but I think I've made the point. What we're really watching here with this uncharacteristic silence from Trump and that cringeworthy caginess from all of those Republican allies is basically a pocket veto in real time. No, they're not saying they do support Robinson, but they're not saying they don't either. I mean, none of these leaders in the Republican Party have just flat out forcefully said what I think should be a layup of a response to all of this, and that is this. This is wrong. There is no place for bigotry, anti-Semitism, sexism, racism, hate, or any flirtation with Nazism of any kind in our party. That should not be hard to do for anyone. But none of them have said that because they can't say that. Because if they say that about Mark Robinson, then they have to say that about Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. If they speak out against the bigotry and hate that Robinson clearly stands for, then they're speaking out against the leader of their own party, too. That would require a level of political courage that unfortunately very few of them seem to possess. Now, just in the last few minutes, we learned that Georgia Governor Brian Kemp pulled his endorsement of Mark Robinson, so I guess there's that. There was so much happening today, we had to bring out the big table. Mark Leibovich and McKay Coppins are staff writers for The Atlantic. Gretchen Carlson is a journalist and co-founder of Lift Our Voices and has an amazing initiative we'll talk about, too. And Simone Sanders Townsend is the former chief spokesperson for Vice President Harris and co-host of The Weekend right here on MSNBC. Okay, a lot happening. I just gave my take on the Mark Robinson news. Mark Leibovich, you never hold back. What is all of that? What does that tell you right now about the state of the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, Donald Trump has introduced an ethic to here. I don't know if we'd call it an ethic, but whatever it is, it's you deny, you attack the media, you claim it's all made up, and then you never apologize. You never show any kind of courage. You never step back and do the decent thing. The problem there is the contagion, and you have people who know otherwise who have to go on TV and sound like idiots. I mean, a thinking person.
I think
cannot
that's a
see.
Fair statement of what we just saw.
I mean, it's not just this case. It's everything, like J.D. Vance having to say that, well, we made up these stories, but it's okay because it's freedom of speech. Whatever it is. I mean, thinking people can actually make determinations about this and conclude that these are not people really fit to serve, and these are not answers that are acceptable to me. So that's what I think this is. I think it's more than just what's happening in North Carolina. It's a contagion.
McKay, I mean, so there are similarities. I mean, Herschel Walker, there's lots of examples, right? And there's similarities for a range of reasons. But this does feel slightly, I mean, Trump is at the top of the ticket. He's never silent about anything. Does this feel similar or different to you?
I think some of the anxiety that you put your finger on here in the Republican establishment, where they don't seem to know what they should say about this, stems from the fact that throughout the party, leaders do not know where the line is anymore for what their base will tolerate and what they won't, right? Part of this is the desensitizing effect that Donald Trump has had on the Republican electorate over the last 10 years. Part of it is you go back to 2015 when Donald Trump first came on the scene. That Republican Party was already in a kind of state of disarray. The Tea Party had upended the politics, had changed the litmus test. A lot of Republican politicians didn't know what they were supposed to say anymore to keep voters on their side. And I think that for the last, 9 or 10 years, basically at this point, they've been following Donald Trump's lead. And Donald Trump is not giving a clear indication about what to do with Mark Robinson. So Republican leaders don't know what to do about Mark Robinson. And that's where you get all the confusion that you just showed, from J.D. Vance all the way on down to local leaders in North Carolina.
I mean, it doesn't, Gretchen, it doesn't feel confusing, right? There are disagreements between the parties.
This would have never happened 8 years ago before
Right.
Trump. I mean, Trump is the enigma here. So the question is, for these crazy candidates, do they win or do they lose? And most of the time, like Herschel Walker, they have lost. So Trump is Teflon. He has had no repercussions for the crazy crap that he says. Mark Robinson will likely lose as governor. But what does that do to Trump in North Carolina, which is the bigger question? Because North Carolina is an incredibly important state to Kamala Harris and to Donald Trump. My concern is that Trump is at the top of the ballot with Kamala Harris. And North Carolina also has a history of a split ticket. They voted for Trump last time, but they voted in a Democratic governor, right? So they have that history. So Robinson can lose. I'm not sure that that means that people don't still vote for Trump in North Carolina.